What is your heart being called towards? Where does it feel a sense of purpose and belonging? When does being heart-centered merge with being courageous for you? When does it decenter you and push you to contribute to a collective good? How do you still let yourself shine and be your authentic self while honoring the collective that you wish to belong and contribute? Welcome everyone, I'm your host Victoria of Estrellita Royalty Astrology. In this show, we make meaning with the ancient archetypal language of the stars, with the current focus on lunar cycles. We'll use this ancient language to see where it can offer us wisdom and insight into our lives lived here on the ground. So we're coming upon a powerful new moon solar eclipse at 20 degrees Leo. That is connected to a series of about 70-ish eclipses that spans over 1,200 years. No big deal. I'm going to talk out what an eclipse even is, themes of Leo, the Leo Aquarius axis, where I will also honor someone we lost too soon, and then get into this eclipse series plus the chart of the eclipse. So go grab a seltzer and a snack and get cozy so we can get into it. Okay, so new moons and full moon eclipses take place and line up close to what are called the nodes of the moon. The nodes of the moon are mathematical points in space. They're not celestial bodies. And they are points that have to do with the aligning of the sun, moon, and the earth, such that in a solar eclipse, the moon aligns directly between the sun and the earth, eclipsing the sun. Because of this alignment for a solar eclipse, depending on where you are located, you'll be able to visually experience this. Eclipses will take place on a nodal axis where the nodes of the moon are in opposing signs, and they will quote unquote do work on these areas of our lives for about a year and a half. This current solar eclipse is coming up in Leo. This usually means that the north or south node would be in Leo. For this one, the south node is in Leo. 18 years ago, we also had south node Leo eclipses and north node Aquarius eclipses. 9 years ago, they flipped and the north node was in Leo. Now we are back to south node Leo eclipses. Ancient astrologers spoke of the nodes of the moon as a dragon chasing its own tail. North node being the face of the dragon and a hunger that can never be satiated, and the south node being a familiar place for us that we've experienced and know well. Because of this, it can also be a place of purging and release, and even I've heard some people talk about liberation, so a liberation from whatever that energy is, so it can move and flow more into the other side of the axis, if you will. So with the South Node eclipse in Leo, we are asking what Leonine themes might we release? Or what Leonine themes might we reconnect to where we already have an inner knowing about and that maybe have been disconnected from us? So all of this so that we can better integrate ourselves and better plug into the Leo Aquarius axis. So we're experiencing the South Node eclipse at 20 degrees Leo and new moon solar eclipse at 20 Leo. We'll feel this a week before and after, and then of course we'll be hit with a lunar full moon eclipse 2 weeks later, but that one's not on the Leo Aquarius axis. It's connected to different nodes, and that closes out the North Node Pisces eclipses that we've been experiencing for the last couple of years. So we're in this eclipse season for about a month, from early August to early September, though some astrologers pointed out that the full moon Aquarius in late July was sort of a kickoff because all of it, the culminating transit present for that intense full moon in Aquarius. Okay, so in order to have the best understanding of how this might impact you personally, you'll want to know the axis that it falls on for you. And so I'm going to put this up so you can take a look. And as you're checking out this is all for your rising sign. If you don't know what exactly that axis means, feel free to drop a comment with your rising sign and I'll share more themes for each of the houses that it impacts for you. Okay, so let's ground ourselves in Leonine energy before moving forward and into the Leo Aquarius axis. So Leo energy, unlike Aquarius, its counterpart that is ruled by Saturn, denoting discipline, structure, Leo is ruled by the sun, the beaming of energy that is beaming for no other reason than to offer warmth and light with presence. Think about how uplifting spending time in the sun can be, basking in the sun for its own right, sitting, breathing, basking. We can also think of a child who can play with an imaginary friend or play within a perfectly logical, out of reality vortex for hours, right? There's a sense of leisure, there's a sense of play and presence. And of course, all of this is associated with being in your heart. Like, play loses its meaning if we aren't actually in our hearts. So it has to be an authentic feeling of, I love being here in this moment. I love you and I mean it. Associated with the lion, Leo energy is often associated with regality, royalty. I'm here to be royal, to love, to protect, to just be here and in this moment. Leo energy can be embodied by someone who warms up spaces and people because they just can't help but see everyone else's light as well, of course, in its high expression. Young children often bring this energy to spaces because they are so bright and want to play, and they want a lot from us, and they often offer a lot back in return. Leos at their most positive have no problem showering someone with praise and love without being fake. It's like their light becomes so focused and fixed on the object of their affection or wherever their attention lies that the love and the heat is felt. Like Aquarius, Leo is fixed, but fixed fire, not fixed air. In being fixed fire, Leo energy is the type that can commit to offering warmth. Aries can get the fire going, but then they can burn out quickly. Sagittarius as well can be taken with an idea and then maybe is gone with the wind. Leo has big commitment energy, big love energy, but with that, again, means they'll expect a lot in return. Leo energy is also about being perceived, and the sun needs an audience to warm up. Leo energy can become unhealthy when it needs and derives too much of its worth through applause. This leonine, regal quality can go sour when there is a belief that there is room for only one royal. I deserve it, but this other person or group of people don't. I'm special. I know best. A sense of pride that quickly becomes arrogance and even narcissism. So that's the shadow side. And that shadow side, of course, is someone who's likely deeply insecure and never, for whatever reason, feels truly seen, yearning to be seen. But then that arrogance continues to push people away, and it's sort of this cycle that continues. So with the new moon solar eclipse in Leo, the light of the sun, that which rules Leo, itself is blocked. For Leo, who are we without that light? So there's something that's almost needs to be revealed about Leo energy that is ruled by the sun when that light is eclipsed, right? So what can we actually see without the light and now in the dark? And remember, of course, as I say all this about Leo, we all have Leo in our chart. So even if you don't have any placements or planets or points in Leo, you have a part of your chart that is ruled by the sun. So with the South Node there in that part of your chart, what is needing release in this area of our lives? But we can't see until the light is quite literally eclipsed. Leo energy wants to contribute, and it also, again, wants to be witnessed. I hate that I'm often struck and saddened by people who leave this earthly realm, as I've referenced in the last few episodes. But when people cross over and they leave a mark, I feel compelled to honor them by learning more about them and by speaking about them out loud. Most recently, Dr. Johanna Fernández, historian, organizer, activist, author, professor, curator, sibling, daughter, friend, passed away on July 30th, the day after the full moon in Aquarius. She was a Dominican American woman, daughter of immigrants who grew up in the Bronx. From what I've learned, she developed an awareness of class consciousness at an early age, which impacted how she contributed and showed up in the world. I was shocked to hear of her passing because she was so young, only 55. And I was so sad because she was someone I looked up to, even though I only met her once. She touched so many people in so many ways, and it's really coming through in the tributes people have been writing about her. I also just referenced her award-winning and well-regarded book on the Young Lords in the most recent episode on the full moon in Aquarius, when I was explaining who the Young Lords were and what their legacy is. If you look at the chart for the day she was born, you'll see that she was born with a South Node in Leo and North Node in Aquarius. The same nodal configuration we have now, and that is connected to this eclipse. And I wonder what we can learn from her, knowing she was born with this configuration that we now find ourselves in. As a reminder, Aquarius is an air sign, intellectual, concerned with the mind and ideas that can change society or a collective group on a larger scale. It is also ruled by Saturn, and embedded in that is seriousness, structure, and discipline. Something I spoke about in this last episode when breaking down the archetype of Aquarius was what the astrologer Bear River said in connecting Aquarian energy to the past 7 generations and the future 7 generations. In this sense, I can see the expansiveness of Aquarian energy and how it can be concerned with a longer sense of legacy for a collective future that we may not get to experience. And also a digging into the past to better inform those future generations. From what I know about Johanna, this absolutely seems to be true. All of her work seemed to be devoted to preserving the legacies of those who fought for meaningful social change and are breaking the colonial and violent legacies of the current system we live in. She was a prison abolitionist. To be able to envision a world beyond one with prisons and commit to that work in a real way, you have to have a view that extends beyond a few generations, I imagine. She is, of course, well known through her work on the book she wrote, Young Lords, A Radical History, and is how I got to know about her and eventually meet her. I spoke about the Young Lords in the last episode and shared what I knew through my reading of her book. In the obituary written by New York Amsterdam News, Juan Gonzalez, former Young Lord and journalist for Democracy Now!, shared, Fernandez's book stands apart because of the scope and seriousness of her research. There's been about a dozen books on the Young Lords that have been published, and there have been numerous memoirs and academic studies. And Johanna's book is by far the best, the most complete, and the most analytical, and one that best places the role and contributions of the Young Lords in the historical context of social change in the United States and of revolutionary movements. She really was, I guess, the only person who really distilled and summarized what was unique about the Lords compared to other organizations, other revolutionary social change organizations of that era. I later learned through her research and writing of the book that she sued the NYPD for refusing to release surveillance files from that time period. The In Memoriam tribute of the CUNY Graduate Center explains the book was the culmination of years of dogged research, including a decade-long request under New York's Freedom of Information law and a subsequent court battle that yielded the release of over 1 million surveillance files compiled by the New York Police Department between 1954 and 1972. And from what I've learned and what I know is that it sounds like that impacted files of surveillance about the Black Panthers, the Young Lords, and even Malcolm X, among, I'm sure, many other important people. Remember, Leo and Aquarius are opposites and counterparts. And their highest expressions, Leo, will be the big-hearted, authentic, and courageous self, whereas Aquarius tends to concern itself with the mind and big ideas that impact us on a collective and societal level, both concerned with legacy in their own right. Here are some more gems from the CUNY Graduate Center's In Memoriam tribute that highlights this big heart devoted to something larger than herself, and specifically to the betterment of a collective society. She organized countless marches and meetings to advance civil rights and engaged people in the study of history through radio programs, editorials, and public events. As she delved deeper into the research, though, she realized writing alone wasn't enough. I felt a responsibility, this is Johanna speaking, I felt a responsibility to amplify the Young Lords' story in the public sphere, in part because of pressure from the Young Lords to not just take the oral histories I'd conducted with them and to do what academics do, write their books and get all the acclaim, she told the Barnard interviewer. She maintained close ties to the Young Lords founders and continued to showcase the group's work and impact, even while ill with cancer. With historian Felipe Hinojosa, she created the Latinx Freedom Movement Archive and Exhibition Project, an initiative timed to coincide with America's 250th anniversary and now on view at the Shed in Hudson Yards. The historians marked the launch of the project with the Latinx Freedom Movement Conference held at the Graduate Center in April. And this is another quote from her. Most Americans, even many historians, do not know the historical origins of Latinos in the United States or the depth of their contributions to the unfinished project of American democracy, Fernández said in an announcement of the conference. From the 1848 annexation of Mexican territory to the 1898 U.S. colonization of Puerto Rico, from student walkouts and labor organizing to bilingual education victories, Latino communities have long fought to expand democratic rights in the meaning of freedom for all. In the obituary written by New York Amsterdam News, filmmaker and producer Sionon Lorenzo recalled watching visitors encounter the Latinx Freedom Exhibition at the Shed and realizing the reach of Fernández's labor. People from all over the world, all different cultures, ages, languages, whether they stopped for 5 minutes or stayed half an hour, you would hear their conversations and they were smart. People would talk to each other. They would see something and be kind of blown away. That's the effect her work has. It doesn't matter where you're from. It's a universal struggle telling the story of people who love and want everyone to be equal, to be safe, and to live their freedom and their truth. And that resonates with people. I saw it in that 1 hour that I was standing by the Latinx freedom. Here is one anonymous final tribute from someone who was deeply touched by Johanna's life. And I was so moved when I read it, I just had to include it as it really encapsulates a lot of these qualities, but that integrate Leo and Aquarius. So this person says, in my opinion, there are so many synthetic people walking around in academia, community organizing spaces, nonprofits, and more. Those that are shedding tears are grieving the fact that we lost a real one. Authenticity is a rare jewel. Nobody is perfect, so no one should idolize Johanna. We are all naturally flawed. But some people really fight and crawl and swim and dig to understand that history is not about being a bystander. Johanna was not a bystander. Johanna knew that life was and is about being an active participant and concerned person of the world. I know that if you were alive, you'd be so overwhelmed and surprised by the tributes. You've inspired so many of us to grab a shovel and dig deeper into ourselves and dream about change. So when I think about Dr. Johanna Fernández, I imagine her humanizing and embodying the South Node in Leo and North Node in Aquarius axis. Leo at its best is operating from a deeply heart-centered, generous, courageous, and authentic place. Her sustained work through her prison abolition, her scholarship about the Young Lords, and commitment to getting their story preserved and out in the public, to teaching her students about social movements, curating this most recent Latinx Freedom Archive and exhibition, to her collaborative spirit in all of these projects. Her heart was clearly full in all of it. And with the North Node in Aquarius, a deep knowing and clear commitment to ensure that her work didn't stop on the page or in the archives. As this last friend shared, she wasn't a bystander, but an active, concerned person of the world. And that is felt through her work and presence that extended and continues to extend to a larger community and many generations into the future. Here I'm thinking about not only what it means to contribute to the next 7 generations, but what does it mean to do so from a heart-centered place? In the last episode, I asked the question in the name of the full moon in Aquarius, when and where do we have moral clarity? And how can we live our lives in ways that sustain that moral clarity? I asked that question and didn't necessarily have the answer. But I think what I learned from people like Johanna and embodying the Aquarius-Leo axis is that we can contribute in an ongoing, sustainable, committed, and disciplined way when our hearts are bright and full, when our hearts lead us to courage, not fear, and when we are contributing from that place, only can we make an impact beyond ourselves. So the question I now have is, how can we operate from a heart-centered, generous, loving, and authentic place so that we can sustain our moral clarity for a collective and humanitarian good? Like when Bell Hooks speaks about nihilism creeping into our heart, when our hearts feel heavy and worn down, we become vulnerable to giving up our imagination, our will, our faith in believing and acting for a world that can be better for our future 7 generations. Leo on its own can become a world of play and self-centeredness, and Aquarius on its own can become heady and cold. Together, when the heart is being nurtured and it is not operating from lack or desire to perform for an audience, or applause, when we feel that sense of belonging and purpose beyond ourselves, what a powerhouse. If you are in New York City, go check out the Latinx Freedom Archive and exhibition at the Shed. It will be there until August 20th. Pa'lante y presente, Doctora Johanna Fernández. May you rest in power and peace. Now let's bring ourselves back to this eclipse time and portal. Because the eclipses fall into a larger series of eclipses called the Saros series, one of the ways astrologers interpret eclipses in addition to the chart is to look to the original eclipse in the Saros series. Okay, so this inciting eclipse is from March of the year 1179. This family of eclipses, like all eclipses, is activated about every 18 years. Of course, with eclipses, you can often weave and locate a larger story that connects to the axis of where the houses are taking place. And maybe for the individual, it's a lot to go back to 1179. But that, going to the initial chart, is one way of understanding the themes of the current eclipse. And so the good news is the astrologer who kind of led the way on uncovering this as a technique wrote about this series. And so I'm just going to, instead of going to the chart, I'm going to actually just share what she says about this series, and we can keep it in context when we get to the chart. So astrologer Bernadette Brady says of this series, this Saros series concerns itself with breaking out of a very negative situation where no hope can be seen to a more positive space containing many options. A worry that may have been affecting a person will suddenly clear. The solution is shown by the cosmos. It needs to be taken up without too much delay. Okay, so we'll keep that in mind. So these dates here are the ones that were the most recent South Node eclipses and are directly connected to this series I referenced that spans back to the year 1179. Tracking dates, I'm not going to go all the way back to then, but in recent history. Tracking dates gets more fun the older you get because you really can start to weave themes from these different moments that resurface or get remixed in different ways. So here are some of these eclipses, right? So we've got August 1st, 2008, July 21st, 1990, and July 10th, 1972. Again, they keep going back, but I'm stopping there. And so you can go back and look at photos or emails or notes or whatever you have that can take you that far back and see if you can make a connection. And I'm going to actually also include on this next slide here, these eclipses that I'm going to show do not connect to this exact series, but they do hit the same nodes of Leo Aquarius. So I'm just going to include them all in. And I'm going to put them up for a minute. So maybe you can take a picture of the screen or screenshot it or whatever you're going to do, but that can also help you weave that story a little bit more. So in terms of the actual chart of the eclipse, let's take a look. So we have the sun and moon at 20 degrees Leo. You'll want to see if you have points or personal planets between 17 and 23 degrees of Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, or Scorpio. You'd be affected the most by this one. The new moon is ruled by the sun, and the sun and moon are in the bound of Mercury. So we're going to look at Mercury in a minute. We also have two other planets co-present in Leo. We've got Mercury at 5 Leo coming for Jupiter at 9 Leo. And let's see. Mercury is just coming off of an opposition to Pluto. And so one thing you can think on is what information perhaps recently bubbled up that is subterranean or subconscious in some way, and that we may have had to deal with, or you may have had to deal with. Or perhaps it comes up through this eclipse, and it's hard to maybe tell what needs to be addressed, but there's definitely something coming up that's important. Mercury is sextiling Venus, which is a nice connection, but Venus opposes Neptune, so again, it might not be super clear what's happening. But perhaps there's a message coming through that's blurry or blunted with politeness or fantasy. Alternatively, maybe whatever message that is coming to us is coming indirectly, like through a tarot reading, a dream, or a piece of music, something artistic. It's clear we feel something important, but it might take some time to fully make something of it. With Mercury coming upon Jupiter, this may amplify the message that is trying to get our attention and help give it meaning as we move into this conjunction on August 15th, just 3 days after the eclipse. So we can also look back, since Mercury is important here. We can see when Mercury was conjunct Pluto and later square to see the evolution perhaps of what this might be about. So that would be when Mercury started its cycle with Pluto. So Mercury was conjunct Pluto on January 22nd, 2026. They had started their own cycle. It later squared Pluto on May 5th, 2026. And now in this eclipse right before, we just had that opposition, something really kind of coming to light, where maybe it feels like that information, I'm not sure it will feel empowering if you have this coming up for you. It might have the flavor of something that comes up that feels icky or hard, and that involves some kind of power struggle. If it doesn't have a power struggle vibe, then it might feel actually just powerful, like powerful to put out there or hear or release in some way. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. If you know what the thread might be for you on the South Node, Leo, North Node axis, please let me know. Or for this specific eclipse, what you think it's bringing up. What information or storylines are coming up? Does something come up for you where, like Bernadette Brady says of this series, that you find yourself coming out of a difficult situation with seemingly more options, even if that is a shift in your own perspective? How does what's coming up for you connect to really getting into your heart and noticing what fills you up so that you can contribute from a big-hearted place without getting burnt out? One last thing I'll leave you with is to remember that, and I spoke about this, but just to bring it back, that a shadow side of Leo can be needing applause to sustain one's light. So for me, I want to note the difference for myself between performance and being performative versus genuine collective care. Genuine collective care and contribution that we make to society or to the communities or groups that we're part of may or may not have an audience. And my hope with the South Node in Leo is releasing, like, I think it's normal, right, for us all to work on releasing the need to be special. And that when we get clear about what our heart needs, when we come from that genuine heart burning place, we won't act out of performance or martyrdom or any of that, but perhaps that earlier hope of moral clarity will come through. Thank you, as always, for being here. Feel free to check out my offerings and book a reading with me at estrellitaroyalty.com. But mostly just feel free to connect and share what's coming up for you on this Leo Aquarius time and this Leo eclipse. Wishing you all mucho, mucho, mucho amor. And of course, peace and courage too. Thank you.